First, what are the lesser known aspects of drumming that you think more people should know about? And then second, I also manage bands, three of them are here. And I just want to know your take on how important the drummer is in a band, because I recently worked with one who did not realize the impact of his contribution or performance to the rest of the band. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, this is good questions. You know, to the first question, you know, one of the lesser, more difficult things to do is when you play, when you stop the time, when there's a measure that maybe has a whole note, and the band has to come back in together, to be able to, so tomorrow night, when things are slow, a drummer's responsibility, but also quality that makes a drummer, you know, one that has more opportunities to be hired, is the way that when you play consistently, when you're, it doesn't matter like inside one song, but when your time and your tempo is consistent and confident, it doesn't move around, it relaxes the rest of the musicians. They trust, everyone starts to trust the time. And I've found that as a drummer, your time can influence and make other musicians have better time than they have with other drummers. But it's about them being relaxed with you when you play. And one of the most difficult things about that is being relaxed, especially if you're going to play, you know, so things like that are, you know, when you know, that's what affects the band a lot. And then ultimately, you know, a drummer's confidence, you know, is key to the rest of the band playing with confidence. They can forget about you, they can forget about tempo, they can depend on you without thinking about it, they can trust you. And then everyone is more free to play without their mind involved, you know, with just feeling. And yeah, so that's definitely a critical part of drumming. And I also find there's a couple of components to playing confidently. One thing's very simple to developing, you know, your confidence with a band in the studio. Confidence for me in that regard is just about how much more prepared you are with your ability than what you need that day. So you always want to have more available to you than you need. That's what gives you confidence and you're able to relax. So it's important to practice things that go beyond what you use, but don't use the things that are beyond what you need when you're playing. So it's a particular discipline where you're developing things beyond what you need to play, but because you learn to play them doesn't mean you need to add them to music that doesn't need it. So I discovered that for me with certain exercises, certain control of the hi-hat and certain things that I want to make feel a certain way. I'll show you in particular one beat. the feeling of that hi-hat, the interdynamics of those notes. To get that, there was no amount of practicing that made it better. What made that better was this. Exercises like that develop the muscles in a different way, which comes back to that confidence thing. You know, I was trying to develop those feels and rhythms with a certain precision for a long time, and discovered kind of late into my process that practicing things that were harder than that was the only way to make that better. I wasn't really, you know, that interested in playing these complicated, rudimental things, but they became the thing that helped those kind of expressive, groove-related things that I wanted to get better with. Anybody else?
Yeah. You said a while ago, like, it takes practice for your confidence. What if, like, that moment, like, at that time you were gonna perform, like, let's say your whole body's, like, shaking and all that. How will you avoid, like, you know, like, let's say if you're feeling, like, scared or something. Like, if it's, like, a whole crowd and, like, you know, how will, any tips for that?
So the question was, how do you prepare for being nervous when you're about to perform in front of a crowd? And I definitely have some one is being, you know, having much more in your hands than you're going to need for the music. But then there's a separate component of nerves that happens psychologically, right? For me, the way that I handle those things is when I'm not on the gig, when it's not time to play, I focus on the feeling of that moment. I think about that. I call it, for me personally, I call it subconscious pre-programming, right? So I think about that moment, and I think about not being nervous, you know, not feeling anxious, being relaxed, and doing that throughout, you know, at other times when you're not in that moment. That's the only way you can really have an impact on that. But it works if you take the time and you think about that. You practice to make sure you're prepared, but then you think about the moment and just think, I'm going to be relaxed. I'm not going to think. I'm going to be relaxed and comfortable. And the other thing is, I would say, when you first start playing, just play less until the nerves are gone. Don't try to play too much. Don't try to do too much. If you have some nerves, just play the basic of what is needed until you loosen up, you know?
Yes,